I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again. Buying real estate in the Caribbean to get citizenship by investment is a bad deal for 99% of people. And as much as you want to invest your money and keep it and get it back in the future, I'm going to tell you today, once again, why you shouldn't do that. Let me be clear on this. I am not talking about lifestyle real estate where you want to buy a property that you're going to live in. For me, certainly lifestyle real estate should be, in most cases, in a place where you can actually sell it, at least for what you paid for it, and hopefully you're keeping up with inflation in some regards. But I understand sometimes, like, hey, listen, I'm doing this for myself. That's not what we're talking about today. We have had one or two clients who got citizenship in Antigua, and they actually wanted to move to Antigua. Maybe you want to buy a house there. I would still probably separate what I'm buying for citizenship and what I'm buying to actually live in. Citizenship for citizenship's sake, lifestyle for lifestyle's sake. But I'm not talking about lifestyle. I'm talking about people who want to hold on to their money. They look at making a donation in the Caribbean as a bad deal. Let me just do this real estate project. Today I'm going to tell you why you shouldn't. And if it's your first time here, my name is Andrew Henderson. I not only hold a Caribbean citizenship, among others, but I'm the founder of Nomad, where we help 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs and investors legally go where you're treated best, including getting second citizenships, offshore tax planning, and more. You can learn more at nomadcapitalist.com. So recently found someone who called out quote-unquote YouTube influencers for saying don't buy real estate in the Caribbean for citizenship. And so since the number of YouTube influencers in the citizenship space is basically me and two other guys who just repeat whatever I say, hi guys, I thought, hey, he's talking about me, and so I thought I should respond. First of all, on a side business note, I think it's great that legacy brand companies look at someone like us as a non-threat competitively because we choose to market the way people market in 2022, and it works pretty well for us. But when I dug into this particular person, I don't like to impugn people's character or mention people by name, and you've never heard of them anyway. But I found out, oh, interestingly enough, this person is a real estate developer. On top of selling citizenship, they're a real estate developer in the Caribbean. It took me about 30 seconds of going to their website to find out they're a real estate developer. What have I told you? When you go to the lawyer in Malta, the answer is always Malta, right? When you go to a hammer salesman, the answer is always, get this hammer to put your nail in there. And when you ask someone who is a real estate developer and citizenship salesman who I don't know them, and so I don't want to jump to assumptions, but I can certainly tell you many other people in their situation are making some very fat commissions by selling people real estate who don't want to lose their money by making a donation. It starts to make a bit more sense. Now, let's talk about citizenship by investment in general. Turkey has the most flexible way for you to buy real estate pretty much anywhere on the open market. You buy $400,000 in property, you get citizenship, you can sell it after 3 years. If you do it properly, which most people don't, you can probably sell that for something close to what you put it in your dollar terms in the future, because generally when the lira drops, properties in good areas, international areas, people who maybe would hold dollars otherwise, the property goes up in lira terms and perhaps stays flat. Maybe it's up a little, maybe it's down a little in US dollar terms. If you're buying some new condo project, half an hour from the airport, you're going to get torched. And we've seen that. People lose 70%. If you're doing it the way that I would recommend doing it, you may come out relatively well. What you have in the Caribbean is a different system. St. Kitts and Nevis has become more flexible. And so even though they are more flexible and you can buy a wide selection of properties, my concern is, unlike in a place like Turkey where you have a huge domestic population, you're not allowed to sell that property to another citizenship by investor in Turkey. You've got to sell it basically on the open market. And there's plenty of folks who may want to buy it locally, or foreigners who just don't care about the citizenship, right? And so in St. Kitts and Nevis, who's going to St. Kitts and Nevis? Who is making that lifestyle decision that, no, I'm not going to the Cayman Islands. No, I'm not going to the Turks and Caicos. No, I'm not going to the Bahamas. Forget the tax incentives in those countries. Forget that I can pay zero tax in those places. I'm going to go to St. Kitts and Nevis. Now, John Cleese, the actor, was living in Nevis. Nothing wrong with living there. And they have a great tax incentive. And so if you're going to get a citizenship, hey, take advantage of the fact that you can live in that place without having to make extra investments. You don't have to start a company. You don't have to buy millions of dollars in real estate to get residence permits like you have to in Bahamas or Caymans or Turks and Caicos, for example. And so a citizenship serves as a citizenship, as a backup, and as a residence permit. But I still would ask you, why would you want to necessarily have a property in a market where there's a lot less liquidity than you'd find where you're coming from, right? People come from the United States and they think that, like, oh, they're going to sell their house in St. Kitts and Nevis in 7 days with, Josh Altman or something. It's not how it works. There's a lot less liquidity, and if the government changes how the citizenship program runs, you may have much less interest in that. That's the case anywhere in the world, right? If you're going to buy property in a beach resort, understand that you're taking the gamble that the country next door may develop a beach resort. My property in Montenegro has gone through the roof in recent years. Guess what? If Albania decided to open up their own yacht club down the coast, down in Saranda or Vlora or something, maybe some of the people who are coming to Montenegro will be pushed down to investing in Albania. Their prices, which are basically at the floor for real estate along the coast, would go up, and maybe you would see some plateauing of real estate prices in Montenegro. That's just the gamble that you take. And you have the same situation in a place like St. Kitts and Nevis, where you're largely dependent. I mean, in Montenegro, they're only selling a few hundred citizenships and they're closing the program down. St. Kitts and Nevis is much more driven by the property market and just in general people coming there for getting citizenship. And so if they were to reduce the dollar criteria of citizenship, you're going to have a lot less interest in an already illiquid market where people, if they want to move to the Caribbean, have so many islands to choose from, including so many tax-free islands to choose from, that especially if you're looking for lifestyle, most people are going to go to the Turks and Caicos. They're going to go to Caymans. And so if that's what you're looking for, I would suggest getting the most affordable Caribbean citizenship and then getting a residence permit in a Caribbean country. You can use your citizenship as a backup residence, but if you want lifestyle first, you're probably going to find a better lifestyle in a place like the Cayman Islands, Turks and Caicos, etc. And so the liquidity is a challenge in a country that most people haven't even heard of. Nothing against St. Kitts and Nevis. I think they have a very well-run citizenship program, but I think that you should probably make the donation. The other issue is people are getting fat commissions by promoting this. Now, I don't know if this guy's making fat commissions or what I do know is you see a lot of real estate projects. Yes, there are some good ones. There's a very small number of good ones. There are some projects in these Caribbean that are just a flat-out scam, and you just think islands have been, one by one starting to crack down on projects where they're never even intended to be built. You have scams in some part of the world that you probably don't hear about as much in the West, where you basically buy into a project that they never intend to build, they give you a kickback, and it's cheaper than the donation. I think it's a terrible idea. I think some of them go against the rules of the program, and I think you should be concerned. And so I wouldn't play any games and say, oh, it's an effective donation, but I'm actually getting a kickback from a real estate. I wouldn't be doing that. And so you have a lot of that in the Caribbean real estate game. You also have just a number of bad projects where you just get paid a 1% yield where they just return your own capital because they're charging you way too much for the product. And maybe you have a few things that are kind of sort of halfway decent. Outside of St. Kitts and Nevis, property is just going to be approved real estate. So if you're looking to buy a multi-million-dollar villa, there was one time in our history where I said, hey, let's look at some multi-million-dollar villas for a client who had, $100 million. And he said, hey, rather than buying in Florida, maybe I want a citizenship. Can you show me something down in like Grenada? And we did. He ultimately decided, he said, I don't care about second citizenship. I have other objectives. In those situations, it may be worth it. Are you still paying a premium? Probably. Is it worth it because you actually want to go there, especially Grenada, outside of the hurricane belt? Sure, maybe that's worth it. And maybe you say, hey, I'm paying a little bit of a premium the way you would with a lot of new developments around the world, but that's worth it. Outside of that, where a villa project could get the approved real estate designation and it's just a place you can actually live full time, people think they're going to live in this hotel suite they bought, or they're buying a fraction of a hotel, or they're buying a fraction of a hotel suite, or they're buying any number of things. Occasionally I've seen some innovative ideas, like there was one, I won't mention what it was, but there was one that turned out to be a scam. I thought, oh, that was kind of innovative because it's not like buying a fraction of a hotel. It was actually something that seemed like a decent investment, and maybe it would have been if it wasn't actually scam. And so, number one, you're taking in the risk because you're going to put out higher levels of capital, obviously, to invest than the amount of the donation. Then you're going to wait, 5, 6, 7 years, however long they make you wait to potentially unload it. Then you're going to face illiquidity. Then you're going to face what if the citizenship program changes the rules and it's just, nobody wants to invest how much you invested, and so now you're just stuck, right? You invested 300, now the rules are 200. Who's going to invest 300 at that point to buy something older when there's always something that's fancier and there's always someone who has a better sales pitch? And so the reason that you might do this, a lot of people will tell you, is, oh, there's a fat commission for them. $40,000 commissions are not entirely uncommon in this part of this area. Why? Because they're selling something for $200,000 or $300,000 that just isn't really worth that much. They're starting some project, some hotel project, development project, whatever. Again, are there a few people who are honest? Yes. Doesn't mean their product isn't overpriced in some cases. And it doesn't mean that they're not paying large commissions to people to push their product. I have nothing against commissions, but if I'm advising you, I'm not going to factor in, I'm not going to tell you to go to a project where I get a huge commission. People shouldn't be selling stuff to you so that they get a big commission. That's why at Nomad Calculus we charge a flat fee so we can be totally unbiased and not be motivated by who's going to pay me. Because we get so many offers from all around the world of people who want to pay us what seem like ridiculous commissions. Cyprus used to, they do in Turkey, they do in some parts of the Caribbean. If you're paying a 10, 12% commission or more, you're not getting a good deal on that property. And I just think that's unfair. Are there a few that are decent? Sure. Who's going to filter that out for you, by the way? This is not a market like the United States where there's intense competition and there's Zillow and everything is thoroughly analyzed. It is rather opaque. So wouldn't you rather than take on a highly illiquid investment with a terrible return on investment over the course of the years and tie that capital up in a country that you have no interest in and you wouldn't otherwise invest in? Wouldn't you rather just look at the time value of money and say, rather than investing $300,000, I'm just going to donate $100,000 and be done with it and know my liability is limited? Because here's the other issue, right? There's also administrative fees in pretty much all these programs. And so you might think, oh, I'm going to save $100,000. Well, that's great, but there might be $30,000 or $50,000 in processing fees, admin fees. Why? Because the government's not getting a commission. The government's not getting paid. When you give a donation, it goes right to work, and the governments in these countries put that to work, building roads, building low-income housing. They actually use the money because they're small countries, right? But if you're just buying into a real estate project, yeah, there's some fees on the real estate side. Yes, there may be transfer taxes, which also add up, but the government wants to get some money for the processing your application, so you're going to pay some kind of fee. So you think you're saving 100 or 150, but you're actually saving 70 or 100, right? You may have transaction costs in the property. In some cases, there may be ongoing costs to maintaining the property. And then there's ongoing hassle, and then there's ongoing uncertainty of what you're going to do with it. So are there one or two good projects that might be interesting? Sure. Would I be willing to look at it? Sure. I give St. Kitts and Nevis credit for the fact that they've opened the market up to being more flexible. And if you are the rare person who wants to buy a property on St. Kitts and Nevis, not because you want citizenship, because you actually want to live there and you like the tax benefits, then that may work well for you, right? But you are still living on an island. Cost of building on an island is higher, right? And so if your goal is just, I want to live in a tax-friendly place in the Caribbean, you've got places in the mainland Caribbean that maybe have cheaper building materials they don't have the shipping cost of getting it to an island. And maybe you get the citizenship for a donation, and then you get residence by buying the property in another country. Now you're more diversified. People are always trying to put everything into one thing. How do I get citizenship, residence, a place to live, a house, everything all in one place? You're going to pay more for that, and you're going to get sucked into probably getting not a good deal. So this YouTube influencer believes that unless you're going to invest a seven-figure sum in a place that you actually want to live, you are better making the donation for citizenship by investment in the Caribbean. If you want an investment and you're willing to buy properly and be patient, you can go to Turkey. There are other residence programs you can get. But here's the other thing that no citizenship by investment salesperson will tell you. You may not need citizenship by investment at all. I happen to think if you're successful and you have the money to do it, it's a great part of a diversified passport portfolio. But your first passport may be able to be obtained by descent, by marriage. Maybe you don't need a citizenship right away and you can afford to wait 3 years for a paper residence, 5 years for a golden visa to materialize. And so you want to understand all your options. That's what we help people do. I'm tired of watching people make bad investments. We saw the former president of Armenia who claimed he never knew he was getting citizenship in St. Kitts and Nevis. He just wanted to make an investment. I think it was the Marriott Hotel. Set aside the fact that I would never want to go to Marriott. I would never want to be caught dead at a Marriott. But set aside the fact of that, he tried to bamboozle his people. That he filled out all kinds of forms that said citizenship by investment, citizenship by investment, citizenship by investment. And he didn't care about that. He didn't even know he was getting the citizenship. He just wanted to make a deal in some Marriott hotel and an island that isn't even that well touristed. Like, that's the stupidest thing ever. I don't want you to fall for the same kind of story. Now, you're not going to get citizenship by investment and not know it. That's just ridiculous. But to think that you're making a good investment, look at the time value of money. Figure out where you can put the extra couple $100,000 that you're going to save by just making the donation. And I'll bet more times than not, in fact, almost every time, you're going to come out ahead, and you're going to come out ahead with a lot less hassle, a lot less uncertainty, a lot less frustration, because these smaller countries don't operate the way that you're used to in your country. That's why I don't recommend it real estate. Not because I'm impugning some of the people's character, although certainly many of their characters could be impugned, but because it's just not a good deal for 99% of people.